morning, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Mariella Taroba-Hennigan.
And I'm Emma Amodio. Here are some of the stories we're following this morning from the On the Record newsroom. The TMU Student Union was unable to pass its own motion at a special meeting last evening. The TMSU, as currently constituted, is unelected. The motion it brought, had it passed, would have meant a further postponement of a long overdue election to legitimize its leadership.
Our reporter, Ria Sidhu, was at last night's meeting. She joined us live. Hi, Ria. Thanks for being here. So, what happened?
Well, Mariella, there was more than 200 students there, and let's repeat, as things stand, there's no elected leadership of the student union here at TMSU.
Well then, who's running things?
Well, it's two external people. They're called interim co-executive directors. So, Mariella, as you can tell by the title, they're interim, temporary, they're caretakers. But someone needs to lead the TMSU, and they're the ones doing it.
So what was the meeting about?
Two things. First, these caretaker leaders want to postpone TMSU elections to next spring. Why? Well, that's because last elections that were last spring were declared null and void.
Why was that?
Well, that's where the second issue from last night comes into the story. There are allegations that last spring's elections were corrupted, and there's a forensic accounting investigation firm, it's called MNP, that's looking into all of that, plus other allegations that go back 8 years.
How do those two issues combine?
Good question. It's because the interim leadership want MNP to complete their investigation before an election's called.
So where does that leave us?
Well, the interim leadership brought a motion to postpone the election to next spring, and the students who attended voted against it, so the motion didn't pass.
Meaning what?
Well, Mariella, meaning an election. The TMSU board is expected to call an election today. But before I wrap up here, I haven't even gotten into the chaos of the meeting yet. Somehow the fire alarm was activated twice, the meeting was extended 3 times, and it didn't end till just past 10 p.m. And generally, the crowd was out of order. Anyway, any more details have to wait for my piece coming on our website later today, so you can follow along there.
Wow, I almost wish I had been there. No, I don't. But thanks so much for coming onto the desk, Ria, and we're looking forward to your story on the website.
Thank you.
Today's date, September 30th, has come to be known as Orange Shirt Day. It's officially known as the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, a day of memorial to recognize the multi-generational suffering caused by the residential school system in this country. There are events taking place all over Canada, including the nation's capital, Ottawa. Here on campus, things get underway a bit later. There's an Indigenous feast happening at lunchtime in the SLC at Yonge and Gould, and a memorial walk after that, starting at Jorgensen Hall. This afternoon, OTR reporters Mariam Karabi and Masa Yazdania are going to Orange Shirt Day events on campus, and will have their item up on our website later.
If you were commuting by subway on Line 2 this morning, you might already know about the fire that shut down service for 2 hours. It started on a TTC maintenance vehicle around 5 a.m. For those 2 hours, there was no service on the Bloor line between Broadway and St. George stations. Service was also halted on a portion of Line 1.
Turning now to international news. A surprise announcement last evening from the White House. U.S. President Donald Trump stood next to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and announced a proposed peace plan to end the war in Gaza. There are 20 points to the plan. The main points include the return of all Israeli hostages, living and dead, immediately. Hamas must lay down weapons, and the Palestinian Authority would not be allowed to govern. International observers say Hamas has 3 options: accept, reject, or negotiate. There will be much more to come as this story develops.
Now let's have a look at the other stories we're working on today and this week on our On the Record newsroom. Standing by live in the newsroom is Nageen Riaz. Nageen, what have you got for us?
Thanks, Mariella and Emma. Let's take a look at what the On the Record team has got for us this week. As you heard earlier from Ria, the TMSU held a special general meeting yesterday. This gave students the opportunity to ask about the null April election and corruption investigation that followed. They were also invited to meet the new interim co-executive directors, and the motion to postpone the fall by-election failed to pass. And not surprisingly, students are still confused still have questions, and still don't trust the TMSU. If that sounds like you, no worries. Ria will unpack more details in an article later this week. And if you're looking for something fun to do in the city, one of the most anticipated events of the year is right around the corner. Nuit Blanche is set to take place over the streets of Toronto this Saturday from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. This year's theme is Translating the City. Installations will explore how we connect through culture, language, identity, and place. Jenna will tell us more about the visual art professor who is taking over Sankofa Square, highlighting the spaces that are once shaped the city's queer history. Keep an eye out for photos of the multi-screen video installation coming to the OTR website later this week. And finally, the Toronto Palestine Film Festival is back for its 18th annual run. This year, the film residency introduced a theme for the first time ever, and 3 films on anti-Palestinian racism premiered at the festival last weekend. Stay tuned for more on that story later in today's show. But that's all from me right now, from right here in the OTR newsroom. Back to Mariella and Emma in the studio.
Thanks, Nageen. Minimum wage in Ontario is set to increase tomorrow, the 1st of October. The 2.4% increase will take the minimum wage from $17.20 to $17.60.
For the first time in its 18-year run, the Toronto Palestine Film Festival has a theme: anti-Palestinian racism. 3 filmmakers in the program received extra support for their work. And as we hear from OTR's Nageen Riaz, that made all the difference.
The festival runs what it calls a residency program. This year, 3 Canadian-based Palestinian filmmakers were chosen. They received direct support for their work about anti-Palestinian racism. The 3 films are The Silence They Taught Us, You've Seen It on TV, and Between the Silence and the Noise. Each had a running time of about 15 minutes. All of them premiered on Sunday at the TIFF Lightbox.
Once we released the framework report on anti-Palestinian racism, it was really quickly taken up by our community and our allies.
According to a 2022 report from the Arab Canadian Lawyers Association, anti-Palestinian racism is a form of anti-Arab racism that silences, excludes, erases, stereotypes, defames, or dehumanizes Palestinians or their narratives. The residency films showcased this year examine the effects of APR. It all would have been much harder to accomplish without funding and mentorship. Through the support of ACLA and Heritage Canada, each filmmaker received $5,000, as well as access to equipment, volunteer crew, and the support of a mentor. The money made it possible for Sarah Bulkus to direct her film Between the Silence and the Noise.
PFF were super supportive. I worked with the coordinator Amanda. She was really helpful in supporting the project, and the funding helped me rent the equipment and feed my crew. So those 2 things are extremely important.
The in-person portion of the festival wrapped up Sunday, but the festival continues online until Friday. The goal being to illustrate the power these films hold in educating and amplifying voices and in confronting the realities of anti-Palestinian racism. For On the Record News, I'm Nageen Riaz.
And now for your entertainment update. From iconic album releases to possible film tariffs, reporter Nadjia Sene has got us covered.
Thanks. Lots of entertainment this week. Here are the stories that are making headlines. Super Bowl! Okay, that's actually a sports story, except what about the halftime show? That's entertainment. In this year's halftime show entertainment, well, that would be Bad Bunny. He's a Latin and reggaeton artist, proud of his Puerto Rican heritage, and a frequent and vocal critic of the Trump administration. A right-wing commentator named Benny Johnson led the predictable shouting and yelling after the announcement by the NFL. On X, he said that Bad Bunny is a massive Trump hater and an anti-ICE activist who has no songs in English. In 2022, Bad Bunny was the most streamed artist globally on Spotify, beating out Taylor Swift, who came in second. The Super Bowl gig is said to be the music's most lucrative gig, drawing about 100 million viewers. Speaking of the Trump White House, President Donald Trump said yesterday that he wants to impose a 100% tariff on any films made outside of the United States. If that sounds familiar, it's because it is. He said it before last May. In fact, industry people say it's kind of impossible to build a wall around the US film industry. It's all intertwined with the production from everywhere else. So let's just see where all of it goes. Lastly, Taylor Swift's new album is called The Life of a Showgirl, and it will be released this Friday. The album will be her 12th studio album and her first release since she bought back the rights to many of her older tracks, meaning this release will be hers and hers alone. Want to guess what Swifties around the world are expecting? Wait for it. They're expecting The Life of a Showgirl to be a massive hit. Like, of course they are. So let's just see how it performs. That's it for entertainment. Back to you in the studio.
Have you noticed it's a beautiful day out there? And apparently, that's what the next few days are going to look like too. With more, here's OTR's Ayshat Abdurzakova.
Thank you for that warm introduction. This is on the record weather. Speaking of warm, let's look at today's forecast. The board is looking bright today. Ontario is in for pretty even temperatures, with the highest being 22 degrees across the board. Some surrounding cities like Barrie and Hamilton will only reach 21 degrees, and our friends in Peterborough will experience the lowest temperatures of 9 degrees. Now let's see the forecast for the next 5 days. Summer is not done with us yet. Toronto is expected to reach a high of 22 degrees and only a low of 11. Tomorrow will be a little bit chillier, starting at 9 and climbing to 17. The rest of the week will be similar, but we can expect overcast on Thursday. It doesn't feel like fall yet, but it will soon. Enjoy the sun while we have it. That's everything for On the Record Weather. Back to the desk.
Now to sports. Well, you'd have to be living under a Toronto-sized rock to not know what story leads the sports segment today. Here's OTR's Jenna Gitlin with more.
Thanks. Yes, it's kind of a big deal. We're talking, of course, about the Blue Jays. On Sunday, they punched their ticket to the American League Division Series with a win over the Tampa Bay Rays. We've got Jess Bertan on that story. Jess, what can you tell us?
Thanks, Jenna. Hot on the heels of a summer-long win streak, the Toronto Blue Jays have secured the top spot in the American League East Division following their 13-4 victory over the Tampa Bay Rays. In the decades since they last claimed the AL East title in 2015, the Jays have had an upward plight to the championship.
We attended the game yesterday.
And what was the number one highlight of yesterday's game for you?
Alejandro Kirk with his grand slam and follow-up home run.
What was the number one highlight of the game for you?
What was the best part?
Grand Slam.
The Grand Slam.
The Grand Slam. The surreal victory was spearheaded by the Jays' Alejandro Kirk, who hit a Grand Slam in the first inning, followed by a 2-run homer, knocking the Rays out of the park and out of a playoff spot. Can you scream like you did when they won?
Scream. Yes!
How did you react when the Jays won the game? With a sold-out crowd of 42,000 at the Rogers Centre bearing witness, all eyes are on the ballpark as the Blue Jays head into October on a high note. The Jays dominated the East Division all summer long, with their smashing 2025 season being described as every ballplayer's dream. The team hasn't won a playoff game since 2016, but now they've got wind in their sails.
I mean, it's been 10 years since they won the American League East. Some of us are old enough to remember when it happened before and when they won the World Series in like 92, 93. It's just so fantastic to see them back in the playoffs.
The Jays' first-round opponent will be determined by the Wild Card Series, beginning tonight when the Red Sox take on the Yankees in New York for Game 1. You can catch the game live at 6 p.m. on ESPN.
Go Jays, but go Canada.
Go Jays, go Canada. The series winner will have to come play ball in Toronto as the Blue Jays have home field advantage for the first game of the playoffs on Saturday, October 4th. For OTR News, I'm Jess Bertan. Back to you, Jenna.
Okay, that's great, Jess. Thank you. In women's rugby, England beat Canada in the World Cup on Saturday. England powered to a 33-13 victory, scoring 5 tries to Canada's 3. The match took place in front of a record-breaking crowd of 80,000 at Twickenham in London. It was a big win for England. The Red Roses had lost the last 2 finals in 2022 and 2017, but this time they were dominant, a performance that showcased their power and pace. England last won the Women's World Cup in 2014, beating, guess who, Canada. But this time, Canada couldn't get its game going, crashing time and again into England's relentless defense. The win capped off an astonishing run of 33 straight victories, the longest winning streak in international rugby history. On Saturday, the Hamilton Tiger Cats suffered a 40-3 loss against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in an away game. Winnipeg's defense completely shut down Hamilton's offense, pressuring quarterback Bo Levy-Mitchell while preventing the Ticats from finding any rhythm. Hamilton's only points came from a single field goal as they struggled to move the ball against one of the league's top defenses. 2 weeks prior, they'd claimed victory over Winnipeg with a 32-21 win, but this matchup proved to be a very different story. That's all for sports this week. Back to you at the desk.
That's all for On the Record this September 30th, 2025. I'm Mariella Taroba-Hannigan.
And I'm Emma Amodio. Join us for On the Record next week as we round out the latest stories from the OTR newsroom.
And for the latest 24/7, visit our website ontherecordnews.ca. Have a great day.